The container is now open. We are going to talk about 5 weird books. These are not normal books. This isn't Atomic Habits. This isn't how to make friends and influence people. These are 5 books you might not have heard of that we think are really important steps on the path, whether your path is to enlightenment or just living a more spirit-forward life or really living out of heart space. And no matter what your tradition you're using, I think that these have a lot to offer. And so we're going to share that today, me and Sai.
You are now entering the container.
So, Sai, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really excited to share these books and and to do an episode about books. It's been like a year and a half or something since we did it, and and our path is like the same in a lot of ways, but also has changed in other ways, and I think the kind of depth and the like non-uniqueness, the uniqueness, the like not typical subject of these books is like kind of shows the way that we've been evolving and changing over time. Like I think we had the Tao Te Ching, when we did our Tao Te Ching series, in books that were really, really popular in across the world, and then these, I don't know, I think some people may not have even heard of any of these, which is so exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. I really, when we got this list together, I was like, oh, this is going to be really fun to share with people. Before we dive in though, I would just like to thank our patrons. They went to patreon.com/thecontainer and they signed up to make small monthly donations, and it keeps us living an extravagant lifestyle that we've come to honestly be pretty addicted to, and I don't know if I would be able to stop living this way. So keep them coming. It's really no, seriously though, it's really amazing that people do support us that way. And if that whether or not that feels right, I implore you to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a review. If everyone who listened to us did that, I am told the algorithm would really go bananas for us. So, and that's a free, really easy thing you can do right this second. So with all that out of the way, you want to dive into the first one?
Sure. The Spacecruiser Inquiry. The Spacecruiser Inquiry by A.H. Almaas.
Yeah. So I want to tell there's a magical story of how I found this book. So I had been getting interested in the work of Gurdjieff, the George Gurdjieff. He was kind of a seeker, and then he became a teacher and enlightened master around the turn of the century. And he came up with this thing called the Fourth Way, or the work. And I had really been kind of excited to deep dive into him because he really, I think, created a really clear-eyed practice for doing the inner work, which, if you want to get your mind right and really focus on yourself and really look with a lot of love, but a lot of clear-eyed, critical eyes at how you're operating, you often need help. You need someone else to show you kind of the ropes of how that works. And it's really helpful to have a process. So anyways, I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And then I was walking around a friend of the library book sale. And here in Charlottesville, you go to this, great big, it's a great big space in the
it used to
strip
be a
mall
department store or something. Yeah.
right. And it's just empty except for these. And then they put twice a year, they put these books out, and it's just like piles of books. It's so many used books. And as I was flipping through there, as I was like wanting to read about Gurdjieff, I came across this thing, Spacecruiser Inquiry. And this book combines it with like Sufism and Buddhism and psychology into something called the Diamond Approach, which I've come to find is actually very much an inheritor of like the Gurdjieff way, sort of, in our modern times. But this book, what it does so well is it just outlines through the analogy of a space cruiser, like you're operating a space cruiser and you're entering into, you're exploring the depths of you. You know, they common saying, a cynical saying around the internet now is like, I was born too late to explore the world and too soon to explore Mars. But I really do think, you know, our generation, or we're going in, like it's time to go in. And this book really um, enlivens that adventurousness and like passion and to explore the inner cosmos through the space cruiser analogy. But it's so full and rich and complete. It gives you kind of a soup to nuts system for navigating inner work. So if you and it, you know, I don't like use all of it now since I read it, but I will say that I think if you're passionate about inner work, you should read this. And you might not like learn a lot, but just seeing how another this guy is brilliant, and the way that he systematized it I think is informative and helpful. But also I think that if you're just getting started, having something this comprehensive is, I mean, what I would give to go back to the beginning and have something this comprehensive and far out. And it's far out too, you know, it's like both hip to psychology and it's hip to a lot of cool materialist understanding that's come in the 20th century and the 21st century, but it's also really far out and like magical and deeply embedded in a spiritual worldview. So that's my pitch for that.
Am I wrong in remembering that Gurdjieff was a contemporary of Rudolf Steiner and that he actually learned a lot of what he acquired in his path from G? He called him G. Um, yeah,
Like Rudolf Steiner learned from Gurdjieff.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool. That's really good lore.
yeah.
That was such a weird generation of folks, man. The late 19th century, early 20th century, they were up to some stuff. We got a lot to learn. Yeah, so I'm curious I'm curious if you want to share the next one. This
Yeah,
next
I
one.
do. This book is um has changed my life. It's called Getting Our Bodies Back by Christine Caldwell. I found out about this book through the SAS leadership training they have. This is one of the required texts at
Yeah,
Transformational
shout out
Connection.
Transformational Connection.
Yeah. Um, and what first drew me to it, or like what first got me hooked, which is funny, is her discussion or her way of defining addiction. And something that she says in the book, which is actually like was really like kind of like shattering to my previous understandings, or like my previous kind of conception of what addiction is that addiction is anything that we lie about.
Mm.
And so, you know, at the same time as reading this, I was also, Jonathan as well, like we've been really contemplating this concept of dishonesty and, you know, the way that dishonesty shows up in the world and in our relationship and in our personal journeys. And, you know, and that like anything that you would want to hide. So really all shadows are addictions in a way. You know, anything that you're wanting to hide about yourself or hide about to yourself or to anyone else is actually an addiction. So I'm going to leave it at that because I could just talk about that one concept like for the rest of the show. But then there's also this concept that actually our bodies are the first, our physical bodies are the first level of experience. um, I think something else I learned in there is that all perception is labeled sensation in the body. So, we think of, our thoughts or our emotions as, these things that arise independently, but this is saying that actually it's all coming from sensation. So the deeper we can tap into the way that our body feels or is, like experiencing anything, is the way to healing and to growth. And it really, it speaks to like this inner process, because I know for me, like when I first started practicing circling and mindfulness and awareness, I was like, I don't know what you mean, where do I feel it in my body? But continuously putting my attention on this question, I now can feel things that I never knew I could feel. Like, I mean, just down to the most subtle, most subtle sensation. And to receive these things is actually messages that are trying to help us to make connections with, with our journey, and with like how to, how to expand our consciousness. Um, and then finally, probably the most incredible part for me in this book that's led to this whole exploration and journey around the idea of boundaries, and how, and we talk about this in our last episode, and I even mentioned this book in our last episode. But the way that she compares boundaries to the cells in your body, or in the cells in any cell, and how the cell membrane, when it's super rigid, nothing can get in or out. And, rigidity leads to disease and to, like all disease. Uh, but when a cell membrane is really, really, really super permeable, then it kind of like turns into this soup, and it just like, oh, and then everything kind of collapses. But when you can, create boundaries in your lives and in yourself, that are permeable, but are still holding in what's vital and beautiful, and allowing out what's vital and beautiful, then that's like the sweet spot.
Hmm.
And I think that's like something I can spend a number of years working and contemplating. Yeah.
Yeah, something that I think Christine Caldwell does so well by rooting things in the body is she simplifies things that can be really complex to do intellectually. It If you're trying to analyze, am I engaging in sort of an addictive like control urge here in the way I'm relating to, say, X activity like video games, say, or like online shopping. If you use your mind, you'll be like, well, on the I'm gonna like make an argument for both sides, yes and no, and I'm gonna be like, well, maybe not, and you can kind of lawyer your way for days and weeks and months and years and make really eloquent arguments for whether or not something is an addiction. uh and then there's also like just use the tech, you were born with, which is the body, and the body will tell you. And if she gives an amazing, I mean, we'll just like let people read the book if they want to know, but I think it's like 7 things, right? Of like 7 signs that someone is acting out of, what she would call addiction, which is a bit broader than maybe we would use in the culture to describe like fentanyl abuse or like alcoholism. She uses addiction as like this frame for how, yeah, we dishonestly kind of cope with like wresting control. Yeah, using the tech, man. Like, we were given bodies, and your body will tell you. And if you learn how to watch your own body, you'll be like, Oh, yeah. One of the big ones is a movement tag. I've used that so much that when you're engaging in this kind of like dishonest, addictive behavior, you're gonna notice that you'll have certain telltale tags, physical tags, and then it's like, oh, it's that not every physical tag necessarily is like, oh, that's bad, whatever is going on. You could probably like go too far, but it is interesting how just readily available. It's at least a good flag to be like, oh, I should like look into this. It's so she just simplifies it. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's incredible.
Yeah, and it's a short book and beautifully
Yeah.
written, and not she's not pretentious at all. It is written so clearly and simply, and which is I find it often a sign of deep wisdom. You're in good hands.
It's also the kind of book I really enjoy. These like really intensely intellectual, like, oh, I'm gonna need like a bunch of other tools to even understand what they're talking about. Like that, I'm like, I'll just let Jonathan read that one and give me the clips.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that a short book that's really clearly written invites you to is just take your time reading it and reread pages and sections that really hit. And it's like you can take time with it because you're not trying to race through. Can I even get this 500 page book? Done. Can I even read it? That's something I like about short books. Well, I like about how I relate to short books, I guess. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
The next one is, I think, probably going to be the most controversial on the list. So if you're, dear viewers, dear listeners, please buckle up. If you're operating a motor vehicle, maybe pause the podcast because this next one is a bit controversial. It's Thomas Merton, New Seeds of Contemplation. This book has that quality of all really great wisdom literature where basically every sentence in it, as you're reading it, you're just like, that is really true. It's almost hard to get through it. Again, this is not a long book. This is like, 300 pages is not super short, but it's in essays, so you don't have to make a big commitment. It's not like you have to read the whole thing all at once. Each chapter is like a coherent essay, but it's like relentless. The every sentence is just wow, yeah, that's really true. And the reason I say it's so controversial is that it is Catholic. Thomas Merton was a monk, Catholic monk. So a lot of people will be turned off by that. And even in the Catholic Church, a lot of people, he's a controversial figure in the Catholic Church because he was very interested in Eastern Zen practices, and he's a mystic, and yeah, so he's like controversial whether you're in or outside the Catholic Church. So that's the kind of guy I want to read. Is a man without a country is often a good guy to check in with. Um, yeah. So why is this book so special? I want to, if you don't mind, Sai, I'd like to read a short, just like a paragraph from it. This is early on. It's the Seeds of Contemplation essay, and this is how he starts it. And forgive him the sexist language. It's just like the convention at the time was to refer to people as men if it was in general. So yeah, so he starts out, every moment and every event of every man's life on earth plants something in his soul. For just as the wind carries thousands of winged seeds, so each moment brings with it germs of spiritual vitality that come to rest imperceptibly in the minds and wills of men. Most of these unnumbered seeds perish and are lost because men are not prepared to receive them. For such seeds as these cannot spring up anywhere except in the good soil of freedom, spontaneity, and love. So that's something you can read. That's, I mean, it's relentless. This book is relentless. He is such a great writer, and it's so contemplative like that. And it's just like it invites you to really move into that contemplative mind space. That's something that I love how popular mindfulness has gotten. And I love how, with all the distractions, people still buy books. People buy tons of books, and people read, and people listen to podcasts, and people are on spiritual journeys, and they are it's so beautiful. But a tradition that I think we are not actively pursuing in great numbers anymore is the contemplative path.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas Merton calls us back to contemplation, which is so quiet and radically free and radically embedded in just awe at being here. Mm.
And it's also, I think it could be argued that, whether you know it or not, contemplation is how embodiment works. Like you can read a book for to gain knowledge or, to be entertained, but it's really in the contemplative space that you fully absorb it and it becomes embodied. It's and so you walk away from that book and you have these concepts to contemplate, and then over time that's like how you actually digest it or something, like into the cells of your body.
That's such a good point. Especially nowadays where we do so much ingestion,
Mm-hmm.
we eat so much content, and we have such little time to contemplate it. And then, Thomas Merton is writing in the middle, or the second half of the 20th century, and at that time people were like, our lives are such, we don't have time for contemplation. Like, he had to go live at a monastery to get enough time to contemplate. And like he says in that paragraph I just shared, every moment is giving you seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Every single moment it has enough to contemplate
Mm-hmm.
deeply, like every single moment. And yeah, I connect that to the circling practice of connecting, this meditative practice of connecting together in the present moment. And every little movement of the face of someone's face, you could just contemplate that for a long time. You don't, you can just, I love that. I love that appetite for what's here.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we're gonna move on to the next book, which is wildly different than the last. Um, and it's called The Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr.
Hmm.
Jonathan introduced this book to me, so you all will hear it here. I am a smoker. At least today I am. Soon to be a non-smoker because I just finished the book. But yeah, Jonathan, will you talk a little bit about it and then I'll like jump in?
Yeah. So Alan Carr is a really interesting guy. He was a businessman, like a traditional 1950s businessman, like wore a hat, took the train, reading the newspaper, going into the city to be a businessman and do business, and smoking 5 packs a day, something
A
crazy,
100 cigarettes a
astronomical.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
More like 10.
And but you know what? He was in that milieu, but he was it wanted to do anything to get out of smoking. So he went to a hypnotist, and it worked. Like, it worked. And so then he wanted to share that with everyone. So he wrote a book, which is like it's like a self hypnotism tool. And the way it works, it doesn't tell you anything you don't know. It just reframes things entirely in what you already know. And it's like with Thomas Merton, every sentence you read, it's like, that's really true. Wow. Yeah, that 100%. I already know that. And that's and also a really cool part of it. This is what helped me. I remember I was so broke when I used it to quit smoking that I spent my last money on that book and a carton of cigarettes. And I didn't have a dime to my name after that.
Yeah, because you can smoke the entire time that you're reading it.
Right, you're supposed to. That's like
Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah. So I was like, when I heard that, I was like, okay, if I get to keep smoking, so I don't have to stop smoking right now. I'd buy this book, and then I can read it as slow as I want, and it just the gift. They've made that company has made versions for drinking and all other, I think, weed
weight
and stuff.
loss and yeah, the Easyway. And they do programs and workshops and but I've been using the audiobook, which I
Mhm.
really love because I can listen in the car, I can listen, just 5 minutes and then like, okay. Because for me, what's happened as I've been going through this journey of listening to this book is all sorts of things. Like I went, into like this deep state of denial and like really, really suffering around my addiction and like how, like how put upon I felt. Like, I went into like victim mindset as I'm listening to the book. I've gone through, these like highs and lows with mood. And and then as like, but also as it's happening, there's a repetitiveness to the message that is, at the time, like I think I was perceiving it as annoying, but it's like an earworm, like it gets stuck in your head. So when you're not listening, you're like, remember, it's like these repetitive messages are going through your mind, and it's not, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's the hypnosis piece, I guess, or the magical piece. And it just reframes like all of the ways that you think, um, smoking works or addiction works, or like what is this actually doing for me, and we have like all these reasons like why it's actually helping me, and it just breaks them
Mhm.
down so completely that it's like you can't argue this anymore. And now I'm in this place where I'm like, okay, like even if I'm not like fully quite there, I have a frame that is really exciting that I get to use when I smoke my last cigarette, which is that like I am now a non-smoker, and I'm a joyful non-smoker.
Mm.
um and yeah, it kind of, it's interesting. It reminds me a lot of the some of the stuff we've already talked about in this episode, like, um yeah, just the way that we frame things can change our reality, or the way that perception is labeled sensation. And so if you're just actively choosing to label a sensation like a withdrawal pain as, um or withdrawal pain as like, oh, this is bad, this means I need another cigarette, and instead you just delete, actually this means that like I'm on my way to feeling better, this is awesome, like this pang means I'm like one step closer to the promised land. um and yeah, and then just, yeah, it speaks to attitude and like, uh I don't know, just the powers of optimism and positive thinking, like not to get all cheesy about it, but yeah. So
It's part of this really cheesy brand of American occultism that really is like the power of positive thinking, or like, new thought back in the day.
yeah.
Um, But what I really love about it, it's actually deeply magical. It's
Mm-hmm.
like high powered magic to reality shift and how to reprogram your reality, but like purely through will. It's um and it's applied to something that everyone who smokes just about would love a button to press to be free. So
Yeah.
and it doesn't try to be uh cool and far out. It is really accessible. And for all those reasons, I think in a weird way, it seems like such a cool book because of that, because it's like, it's so unassuming. And yet it's the most powerful kind of magic, reality shifting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Ah,
All right. Why don't you take us home with our fifth and final weird book?
yeah. This book is, it. I found this book when I started doing hospice work. And actually, in the hospice training, it was interesting. There was this whole table of books when I went in for the first day of training, and this book was not on that table. I
Mm.
found it just, looking through books about grief and healing grief. And it's called The Wild Edge of Sorrow. Um, and it's by Frances Weller. Um, and so I think one of the most, I don't know, the ways that Frances Weller discusses grief as something that comes in stages. As we know, people say, oh, there's like the 10 stages of grief. He actually talks about it in a framework called the 5 gates. Um, and these
Mm.
gates really, for me, like they tie in so beautifully to things that arise in circling, or in relating like super mindfully or authentically with other people. Um, and I'm not going to go through all 5 gates right now, but one of them is around like personal loss, and the way that like when we share the pain that we're going through and it's actually witnessed by another person, that's actually where the healing takes place. um, that you know when there are other people that can help to hold that pain, that that it gets dispersed and it isn't as much to carry and to hold. And just with my first few hospice patients, I've just seen that so immediately to be true, like so instantaneously to be true. You can walk into a room and there's all the family members and the person who's passing away, and it's thick, like you can feel the grief. And as a person who's not in that container, it's like, oh, I can like walk in and help hold. I can help, like I can take on some of this because it isn't living in me. And just my presence in this room could maybe help alleviate, or it no I don't want to say alleviate the suffering, because I think the suffering is extraordinarily important. um it can help to allow the suffering to like go in deeper and to fully be
Mm.
felt so that it can heal. um and then something too, that Jonathan and I have gotten really into lately is uh this concept of ritual and the importance of ritual and of ceremony. And Weller goes at length. There's like several chapters on this in the book around really creating grief rituals. And these don't have to be just for you lost a loved one. It could be like grief of the end of a relationship, or grief of maybe like a pattern that you're like working through, and but there's grief there because like now you don't have that pattern anymore that you can rely on, like that. Some of the deepest like healing is like, oh, I can't, like I don't get to do that. Was what I used to stay safe my whole life, and now I'm working through that, and I can't use that anymore, and it's devastating and needs to be like, to be held. And so in communities or in groups of people that you love and trust, like being able to create ritual and ceremony around bringing forth you know these pieces of grief so that it can be seen and it can be held, um and there can be like really like beauty attached to it as well, is yeah. So I can't say enough about this book. It's a wild ride. I listened to it again on Audible, and um I don't know if this is connected, but I had some of my very first experiences listening to it and like being sort of in a meditative state of something akin to like uh what do you call that when you leave your body and you go um out of your body? What is
Like
it?
an out of body experience.
Yeah, like I my eyes were closed and it's like the blackness just like cleared, and then I could see a clear blue sky and like trees and clouds behind my eyes closed. And I don't know if that was related to the book or
Now that's a
um
good book. When you
yeah, so there was like a darkness that felt like there was light like coming in as I was.
I rem- I remember the period of time you reading it and the difference. You were in like kind of a different state. Like it was noticeably different. It was quite a journey for you.
Yeah,
And I really love this idea of creating grief rituals for patterns that you have to let go. That idea is like so rich. And also just the storytelling, like understanding that we need to tell people the story of our loss, and then they can be there with us. It's just so powerful. I remember when my grandmother was on her deathbed, and she was dying, and I remember wanting a ritual and feeling like I didn't have one. At the time I was like a atheist, agnostic, kind of just like I didn't have any structure. There was no ritual structure to place there. And then uh, a priest in our family um, was there and did a formal blessing and did last rites, and it was like, whoa.
yeah,
I really felt like, whoa. Just having a ritual changed everything.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, I think that that's one of those seeds that led to so much spiritual growth for me, was a really appreciating, like needing a ritual, not having one, and someone else stepping in and bringing that magic.
yeah.
Was, yeah,
Mm.
5 weird books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
At the
yeah, I imagine we're going to link them in the, or at least put them into the notes for people to be able to easily find, in some way.
Mhm. Yeah, so check out the show notes, and then uh, yeah, I'm having this thought. I want to do a sequel of the best audiobooks, because some books are way better as audiobooks and some are just don't work as audiobooks, especially if there's like a lot of charts or
Right.
like terms to remember. It can make it a little bit difficult. So I want to like I want to have like specifically good audiobooks too. I was thinking about that because you and I both like rely a lot on audiobooks as a way to supplement our reading,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people do. So
I was just thinking 100 Years of Solitude is not a good audiobook.
all those
You
names.
need that family tree or you're going to be, it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay, Jose Aurelio, what?
yeah. There's so many characters with the same name,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Oh, what a book though. Um, Yeah, and I also want to shout out that as we're wrapping up here, we are going on an odyssey. We're going to visit Rome and England, we're going to visit with our SAS friends at Transformational Connection. Shout out all of them. I know that they're all listening. And we're so excited. And it also means that our next episode in 2 weeks is we're gonna put some video content out, but it's not gonna be a full episode. And we're working right now on a sort of a relaunch of the podcast with we're making a lot of moves to kind of relaunch the podcast and kind of like see what the next chapter is going to be. We are really excited, and we're glad that y'all are here. I felt like that was good to end this episode on, because the next time you see us, we're going to have been through kind of a bit of a journey.
A little tiny.
A bit of a global journey.
Just a small portal.
Yeah. And
expansion.
One more thing, I know that it's controversial for really important reasons, but I think there's also a lot of beauty at the heart of having a Thanksgiving feast at around harvest time, really getting together with people, eating, feeding each other, and just taking time to be grateful. So I do want to give out Thanksgiving shout outs to our American listeners, my fellow Americans. You want to take us outside?
Yes. So I guess with that, the container is now closed. But namaste.